Hi guys, the first story tonight out of the Guidepost book, True Stories Where Miracles Happen, True Stories of Heavenly Encounters. The first story tonight is A Light Unto Her Path. And like I said, each story begins either with a Bible verse or a quote or something by someone. And this one is, it looks like a quote by Gerald Manley Hopkins, God's Grandeur. The world is charged with the grandeur of God. It will flame out like shining from shook foil. Now let me read A Light Unto Her Path. Sounds really nice, doesn't it? Margaret Baucom of Shreveport, Louisiana, a private duty nurse, had been caring for an elderly man for several nights in a row. Usually her shift ended about 7, but the man's wife had awakened early one morning and told Margaret to go home to get some much-needed sleep. Margaret pulled away from the house in somewhat of a fog, so tired that she forgot to press her automatic door lock. She would avoid the high-speed interstate, she decided, yawning, and take a slower route home. It went through a tough section of town, but I assumed no one would be up at 4 a.m. Drowsily, she drove up the speedy, poorly lit avenue, then stopped for a traffic light behind the only other car in view. Almost immediately, all 4 doors opened, and Margaret saw 3 young men get out of a 3-passenger seats. Slowly, they started toward her, menacing. Margaret's heart started to pound. Her doors were unlocked, and for the life of her, she couldn't remember where the automatic switch was. Everything seemed to click into slow motion, as if a record or movie had been slowed down. Wildly, she considered putting the car in reverse or speeding up to run over them, but she seemed paralyzed with fear. God help me, was all Margaret could think to murmur. Instantly, 2 enormous headlights shone right behind her, as if a huge 18-wheeler had pulled up inches from her rear bumper. The lights beamed through her car and seemed to flood the entire avenue with a radiant white glow. Margaret looked at the storefronts, the parking lot, several yards ahead. Everything was bathed in brilliance. It was brighter than the pictures on television of the Gulf War bombing raids, she says. Yet how could that be? She had heard no truck approaching, no sound of an engine revving or shifting gears, and despite the powerful glare behind her, the night was completely hushed. At that moment, the driver emerged from the car in front of Margaret and started toward her. Oh God, please, she prayed. She was going to die here. Then she saw a look of shock, fear, terror replace the young man's threatening expression. He put his hands way up, almost to gesture of apology towards the light. Margaret says, and backed up right into the car. The others jumped in, and the car sped off and squealed around the next corner. Margaret slumped against the seat, almost weeping in relief. It had all happened so fast. Had it been a dream? But no, the headlights were still there. Slowly she stepped on the gas and pulled away from the corner. The twin beacons followed her, illuminating the night in a glow that was almost heavenly. Margaret began to feel serene, protected, almost blessed, and yet there wasn't a sound behind her. When she reached a forested area, she saw the lights silently turn off to the left and disappear. Just a few blocks more and she was safely home. I was shaking, almost a holy trembling, and my husband knew something important had happened. She told him of her close call. Where did you say the truck turned off? Bob asked. Right at the woods, Margaret described the scene. Bob shook his head. It did, Bob, she insisted. I saw it go left. There was a look of wonder on Bob's face. "Margaret, nothing could turn there. There's no road anywhere near the woods." Margaret still wonders what the driver of the car saw behind her that night, but she'll never forget the silent, steadfast beacons that came as a light unto her path. I've heard other stories about that, about stuff like that. Like, there was like this one little girl walking alone, and there was these guys, and she was afraid because these mean guys were there, and she was walking alone, and they were going to attack her, and she was afraid they were going to attack her, but she started to pray, and they got scared and turned away. And the reason they didn't attack her was, they said, because she had two big men standing there with her. But she didn't have no men there with her. See, they were angels in disguise. There was nobody there with her, but they seen two big men there with her. God had sent angels there to protect her, that only those bad guys could see. See, God will protect you. So stuff like that has happened, will happen to people. Just like happened to this woman. God protected her. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story, and I hope you guys enjoy the other ones that I read tonight. Good night, guys.